Welcome to the Dream Power Show, where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
There's no doubt that we're living in turbulent times, and it leaves us faced with the question, what do we do about it? We're going to tackle that question from several angles on this episode, the Dream Power Way. Before we can begin to be agents of change for others, we must first embrace our own inner power. And to give you some guidance in this area, we talk to these experts. Spiritual healer, speaker, and author Barbara Wilder, who asks we all embrace the concept of compassion to bring peace around us. Dream expert Kelly Lydic explains how dream incubation can give us the answers we need on how to live fulfilling lives. Women's empowerment coach Charlene Madden tells us how we can thrive despite whatever hardships life has thrown at us. And coach and philanthropist Chad Cooper outlines why it's so important for the world, for all of us to move from thinking about me to we. As you can see, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's begin. Some of you may not realize that the interviews that you see here are part of a podcast I do called Dream Power Radio. Well, that show is also now a radio show heard on a station called Power Me Up Radio on iHeart. It's a 24/7 station devoted to bringing you something you don't find on any other radio station. 100% positive programming. Now I'm happy to bring on one of my sister hosts on the station, Barbara Wilder. Barbara is an internationally acclaimed author, speaker, teacher, healer, and now radio host. She's the founder and director of the Transformational Light Center, where she offers workshops and programs to help people rediscover the light within. She's also the author of 2 books, the groundbreaking Money is Love and Embracing Your Power Woman. Her show on Power Me Up Radio is called Compassionate World. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Barbara.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Debbie.
Oh, I am so excited to have you. I mean, I had you on a couple of years ago and always wanted you back, and what a perfect opportunity. So.
It is. It's perfect. It's so wonderful now that we're both hosts on Power Me Up Radio.
Absolutely. And Barbara, I'm fascinated that you're focusing on the whole idea of compassion on your show. But usually whenever I start my interviews, I always like to start with the basics. So I want to ask you what your definition of compassion is.
Well, that's it's a word that we have not completely owned yet in the world. But it's when we can feel and care for and love gently and when we have compassion for ourselves, it helps us be able to be compassionate to others. So it's always, it's like it's centered in our hearts. Compassion isn't in our minds. We have an idea of what love is. That's sort of in our minds, but compassionate really emanates from our hearts. And that feeling you get when you care about somebody, yourself or somebody else's struggles, and understanding from an understanding, loving, compassionate place.
Yes, that's beautifully put. And Barbara, I always love synchronicities when they happen. And it's funny, every year I bring on a noted astrologer, Sharita Starr, to come on in January to talk about what the stars have to say about what we should focus on or attention on any given year. This year, she said that humanity will need to focus on mastering the value of compassion. So what are your thoughts on that? It's so perfect.
I didn't know that. And it just is so perfect, because when you had invited me on to Power Me Up Radio, and I was thinking, oh, what should my show be called? It just came to me. It was just Compassionate World Radio. There wasn't any other choice. So it's one of those things where we're all connected in, to this oversoul, and we're all really doing it together.
Mm-hmm.
We're always really surprised that we have this great synchronicities, right?
But, right. But, I heard you say that, compassion really, it starts from within, but it starts in yourself before you bring it out into the world. So,
That's so true. And because if we don't have compassion for ourselves, we can't have compassion for others, because we're always feeling anger or not good enough or not as competing and all those other things. But once we're not feeling, once we feel that we're good enough, that we're okay with ourselves, even if we are a mess, even if everything's really hard and we have all this stuff going on inside our head that says we got to be out there and do it and be better than, and all of the stuff that our culture teaches us. Once we can get quiet enough just to say, oh, honey, oh, sweet person that I am, I'm sorry that it's hard. I'm sorry that you're not perfect. I love you anyway, and from there, what happens when we have that compassion for ourselves, it's not even like we have to do anything about the world, because it just expresses out from us. It expresses out from our hearts because we feel it. When we feel our compassion, it expresses out, and it helps being part of the co-creation of a compassionate world.
right. And it always starts with one person.
Yeah.
And you take
always.
it from there. Well, we're just coming out of, I hope we're coming out of over 2 years of dealing with a pandemic that's tested all of us in so many ways. And, everyone who looked at it as a way to really go within and, rediscover ourselves, has been able to, I think, weather it. If not, at the very minimum, weather it, but hopefully thrive through it all. But unfortunately, there's so many people who've just taken the opposite way and have reacted with just being more intolerant. The example being like, people getting angry at people wearing masks, or people getting angry at people not wearing masks, just for example, or even some of the laws that are now being passed that are based more on tolerance and acceptance. So how do you break through to people like this to show them how to be compassionate, that there's another gentler, kinder, more loving way to live?
That's a very big question.
Really talking about big questions here.
I mean, I think that is the big question. I think that's what the astrologer meant when she said this is what it's going to be all about this year, because we don't know what it really means. We haven't lived it. We've all lived up some part of compassion in our lives. Most everybody, I mean, a lot of the way that this compassion is showing up is with our animals. Because
How so?
Because being particularly with dogs, some cats, but and the cats that have this are very special cats for you lovely cat people. But with a dog, for instance, they basically just love. They just love. And I've always work with my clients when they're having a really hard time with loving themselves is to get a dog. Get a dog, because the dog loves without judgment. And you see, that's the piece. We are taught in our culture to judge everything.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore we judge ourselves harshly. We are the first person, thing, anything that we judge is ourselves.
Yeah, we're usually the worst critics of all.
Yeah, exactly. So, but our dogs don't treat us like that. Our dogs just go, you're the most wonderful, wonderful person in the world. You're fabulous. And when you lie down with a dog next to your heart, you can feel this. You can feel what that love feels like. It's really a wonderful thing. And on social media, with all the fighting and the dissent and all those things that are on social media, one of the most watched things on social media are the wonderful animal stories. And the people are just absolutely taken by these animal stories because it's all heart, it's all compassion. And you can have compassion for these animals much more easily than we can have compassion for ourselves or for other humans.
Right, because the dogs don't talk back.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's all the wonderful stories of animals, of different species, hanging out together and loving each other. It's a great teaching tool, these videos.
It certainly is. But do you think the people who are watching all these videos are the same ones who are writing the nasty things on social media?
Yes. And I think I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And but because, the whole problem we have in our world is we live in this duality consciousness of good or bad, or me or you, or my religion is the best religion and yours isn't. And all of that is really programmed into us.
Right. Or if you don't agree with me, it's not just, oh, we have a difference of opinion. It's like, no, you're evil. You're the enemy.
Right. There's all that. Yeah. And we can't get to compassion. And that's why we have to do it in ourselves, because that duality lives within ourselves. That duality lives. That's, the good wolf and the bad wolf, right? And the truth is we're all part of an overall goodness. And when we can relax a little, take some time to breathe first thing in the morning, take some time to be with nature, be with an animal, be with what is the pure goodness of just getting in the water, just taking a bath, taking a shower, being with the elements. It's all beautiful.
And it's funny when you say that, because you're really taking everything down to its most simplistic form. It's like, it's not complicated.
Right. Not complicated. That's true, but we have been so split apart. I mean, that's where duality started, is when we decided that humanity was not part of the overall earth. Like, and we are not something outside of earth. We are just like the animals and the rocks and the trees and the grass and that's all about nurture.
Right.
The earth is about nurture.
But toward that end, though, I think that the same people who find it hard to find compassion, either in themselves or with other people, also find it hard to love themselves. There's so much hate going on. So how can we embrace loving our higher selves?
Well, higher selves. That's a new. You brought in another piece, haven't you, darling? I think the most important piece. Thank you very much. I see that compassion is a step toward learning to love ourselves, because it's easier to have compassion. It's easier, this overall the love of our higher selves for us, because I believe that we are a great spirit. Each one of us is a divine spirit that creates this physical form for us to come down here into a denser energy field and learn stuff to grow us. to grow our souls. And so our higher selves, our spirit selves, our soul loves us unconditionally because she, he, it, whatever pronouns you're using, absolute loves what's the creation, which we are. And that's where we connect in meditation. You know, that's as we breathe the breath, we're breathing the divine breath, and that's connecting us, because that's where the initial split is between our higher selves and our physical selves, because ego thinks that we are just, you know, that we are all in this wonderful, distinct, different person who is better than or worse than, right? And our higher self is to say, no, I just love you. You are the most wonderful, wonderful being, and just like all the other wonderful beings.
So, Barbara, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Oh, thank you for asking. My website is www.barbarawilder.com, and just go on there and you can learn, you know, about the things I'm doing, and get on my mailing list, because I send out a compassionate letter.
We've been speaking with author, teacher, and healer Barbara Wilder. We'll be right back with our next guest. This segment's going to be a little different from the ones I usually do. Normally, we have discussions about the inner you, but now I want to bring your focus to the outer you. The truth is, we don't live in a vacuum. There's a whole world out there that, from my perspective, is a whole lot more topsy-turvy than it's been throughout my lifetime. We've seen so many horrible things going on, and the question always comes up, is there anything I can do about it? A lot of the times we have a tendency to stick our heads in the sand and tell ourselves that someone else will take care of things. But part of your discovering your inner power is the idea that you can be the agent of change. You can be the one to make a difference in the world. If you're doing this already, I congratulate you. If not, you may want or need some encouragement. And for that, I'm bringing on my guest, Chad Cooper. Chad has made it his mission to be a change maker for the good of the world, and it would take me a whole show to list all of his accomplishments. Besides his high-performance coaching practice, Chad is the founder of the Chad E. Cooper Foundation, runs charitable programs in Guatemala and other places around the world, and wrote the best-selling book, Time Isn't the Problem: 4 Strategies to Turn Stress into Success. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Chad. Chad, you started your professional life in IT, in the IT world, made a lot of money there, then turned to coaching, made a lot of money there. You could have retired and spent your time on your own private island, or traveling endlessly around the world, or doing anything you wanted just for yourself. But for you, it was always about service to others. So why is that so important to you?
Well, thank you for the question, Debbie. And you know, I think as a society today, we are getting trapped into conversations that are asking the wrong question. And it is incumbent upon us to have recognition and awareness of that, and then through kindness, redirect that question and say, I'm not interested in this conversation. I'm interested in the one that we're not having. And I just came back from a men's retreat, faith-based men's retreat in Estes Park, Colorado, which is absolutely gorgeous. The conversation really began, Debbie, with, you know, where did your walk in faith begin? And all of these men had talked about, you know, the path, and that they didn't really get there until later in life. And I said, mine is actually always been a walk in faith. But it has not been from the conversation as many people, oh, he's just, you know, designed, or he's just led to be a servant. But quite the opposite. I woke up one of the mornings, and the conversations really kind of go like this: is, you know, we have many ways that we can talk to that higher presence, whatever we may call that. And I hope that it isn't, Lord, if it is your will, that Bentley in this particular color, if it's your will, would be really nice in my driveway. Probably not one that the universe is going to answer. Maybe it is, right? But mine is more, I woke up and I was told, I have built you, I have made your path to serve the people in Guatemala and build houses for women and children, to have a part of my foundation where we go into disaster recovery zones and we help with PTSD, we help with the emotional trauma. We don't try to compete with Red Cross or UNICEF for food, water, and shelter. We go in and we do music and art to help them emote, to help them be able to express the tragedy and the trauma that they experienced. And then I work with the oldest indigenous tribes around the world, one of which have been adopted into the Waitaha nation in New Zealand, and now am a family member to that tribe. Now, I give you this long explanation because the message when I woke up was, I've given you all of these things because this is what I'm directing you to do, is to go and serve the people of Ukraine. Now, my answer is usually, please don't ask me to do that. I have enough on my plate. I don't want to go there. I have my wife is on long-term disability, very ill, very sick, and that's enough on top of things. And now you're telling me you want me to go do this. And the reason I say that we need to change the conversation is because as a society, we've gone from the we and into a culture of me. Now, I have every reason, every excuse to say, I'm busy enough, I don't have the desire to serve the we. But that's not really what we were designed in directed to do. And there's a great, the most successful financial advisor in all of history is a man by the name of Ray Dalio, which most people have never heard of. And he wrote a book, Principles of the Changing World Order, which is extremely data heavy, extremely boring for most people. But he said there's 8 red flags to the indications of an empire collapsing. And one of those is that we move from the collective we and into the individual me. And so it begins by us challenging and asking the question, what I'm doing more about serving me, or is it about serving me and we? And we need to be aware that we need to change that conversation if we're going to change all of the challenges that we're facing right now, which is not an argument of, is it real or is it an illusion? It's real. What's going on is a real, unique time in our society, in that as a civilization is on the verge of collapsing. Now, that can take 25 years, 75 years, but make no mistake, that's where it's going because of our choices, being self-serving versus servant leading.
You're right. We have been focused on me. What can I do for me? And changing that conversation. How do you get people to change that conversation?
Yeah, I can look at my journey and my walk, and it is the reason I was giving the example of waking up and being told that, I have conversations with God. It's not a one-way text of help me, and it isn't oh Lord, where are you going to direct me? It's, this is where you need to be. And I kick and scream. And for many times it was, okay, finally a baseball bat across the legs and knock. Okay, now do I have your attention? Yes. Okay, I relent, right? And I said, I don't want to do that. And the response is, I'm not asking. We, our spirit, our consciousness is connected to a higher being. And so many of us are consciously going, la, 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 I can't hear you, I can't hear you. But it is ceaseless. And we are choosing to tune it out. But guess what? It's not going, you can keep changing the channel, it's still there, right? So it begins by recognizing how is that being communicated to us? And what is it that we are called to do?
I do want to get into what I would call the practical aspects, which is, let's say you have this feeling, you do want to do something in your community, let's say,
Mhm.
starting small, just start in the community. And the question arises, or the statement arises, I just don't have the time. Well, one of the things I learned from working on your book was the whole concept of time management. So could you speak a bit about how we can create time when we feel time isn't there?
Absolutely. Great question. And thank you. Because as you know, the thing I say, the one great equalizer is time. We are all born with 168 hours a week. No matter how much money you have, no matter where you were born, no matter your economic situation, we are all given 168 hours a week. No more, no less. You, me, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey cannot buy one more hour. So it is truly the great equalizer, and it is indifferent to your background or your excuses. The question is what are you going to do with that time? And so if you want to begin by saying, oh, I want to serve others, but I don't have time, then get ahead of it and look and just simply start blocking it on your calendar, whether that's 15 minutes. You know, if you want to begin meditation, start with 3 minutes, 5 minutes. But we're like, oh, I got to put an hour. Now just start small. It begins with small acts, but it begins by blocking the time on our calendar, choosing to make it real. And so that may be 3 months from now, Debbie, that you say, I'm going to start. Yes. And it's 3 months from now, 3 weeks from now, 3 hours from now. Just decide and block the time, because otherwise you're never going to get there. It's always a when I have time. Well, yeah, I get that. So choose down the road to block it and begin.
Yeah, and it always ends up being the choice, because you have the power to make that choice.
And the language that we use to finish that is incredibly important. It's not your strength that holds you to your purpose, it's the strength of the purpose itself. So don't put some boring limp language in the subject line. Put making a difference in the world, putting smiles on people's faces, helping one person through the door. You have to tie the purpose in the subject line, or otherwise it looks like work, and we don't like to do work. So we have to find that purpose and attach it in order to compel us to find the opportunity rather than the chore.
Mhm. That is so important. We are almost at the end of our time here. This time
Time
is
does fly.
Is there a final thought you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I would say, you know, if nothing else, we are pessimistic, we are critical, we are skeptical of others in the world. And if you think that others are setting you up, yeah, they probably are. They're setting you up for something great. So I would invite you in your calendar to start by putting affirmations and inspiration in your calendar, by creating appointments that start every day repeatedly, to start changing what you focus on. Every day I have probably 20 quotes and affirmations. And the first one in that is, may I begin with peace, and may peace begin with me. So what are those things that help you redirect your focus on what's wrong is available and so is what's right? I'm going to focus on what's right. But I'm just not that smart. I'm just not that kind. I have to set that up intentionally, because I'm as vulnerable as anybody else. So I choose to flood myself with goodness, because I'm being bombarded with the toxic as well. You got to outnumber it. That's how we win.
And that's how the first step to making a change happens. Well, Chad, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Real easy. Thanks, Debbie. Is they can just go to chadecooper.com. E is in echo, chadecooper.com, and then / foundation if they want to know about the foundation. But they can go there and start finding other ways that they can begin changing this trend for the better. And that begins with changing the trend for themselves. So I'm more than happy. I've got actually ironically, I've got 2 spots open right now that if they want some one-on-one help that is available. I have a membership course that I make available for free. So just go to chadecooper.com. There's a multitude of resources that they can begin making that courageous choice to say, today's a new chapter.
We've been talking about how you could be an agent of change with my guest, Chad Cooper. We'll be right back with with my next guest. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a way to get insights into issues that are bothering us? Well, if you've watched this program for a while, you already know that you can. That's right. The answer is within you by paying attention to your dreams. But you don't have to wait until a random dream sends you these messages. You can actually fine tune your dreaming practice by a process called dream incubation. And we're going to talk about that now with Kelly Lydic, the author of the book, Dream Incubation for Greater Self-Awareness, a handbook. Kelly's been working with dreams for decades through her company, Waking the Dream, and has written extensively on dreaming and wellness. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kelly, because I loved having shows about dreams, and I really liked having this opportunity to really take that deep dive into dream incubation. But before we talk about that, I just want to ask you this. Why are dreams important to you?
Oh boy, that's a big question. Why are my dreams important to me? Because I think that when we engage with the dreamscape, we have access to not just our own subconscious, but also the higher self, as well as the collective unconscious. And I feel like there's such a vast pool of information there that possibility becomes, nearly infinite. And that feels really exciting and really refreshing and freeing and hopeful for me.
Now let's talk about dream incubation, because I said we were going to, so let's do that. And your process for achieving the best results. And one thing that you recommend that I thought was kind of unique is something that you call an incubation container.
Yeah.
So what is this, and how does it work to promote the dreams you want to have?
Yeah. So dream incubation has been around for a long time, and there have been different iterations over the years with the dream incubation process. And what I have found and what has been taught to me by one of my teachers, Denise Lynn, is to use a container. And the container is not just a symbolic container, but it's actually a physical container, right? In this way, we're really looking at maybe blurring the boundaries a little bit between waking and dream life in the symbolic object of the container itself. Symbolically, it functions to contain the energy, right? It helps to give us a visual cue of the energy behind the intention of the incubation statement or question. So when we have a piece of paper and we have our incubation statement or question that we've written down onto our small slip of paper, we fold it up and we put it into the incubation container, we put the lid on it. So now we've really contained it in a finite space where it can become more empowering. It can be charged, so to speak. It is really held in a succinct space, a concentrated space. I think that's really the goal of having the container, is to concentrate the energy so that it inherently becomes more powerful, right? It's kind of like putting a lid on, some kind of running water and containing it. We're really kind of building like a pressure cooker almost, this incubation container where the energy can then help through the dreamscape.
Okay, well, we've talked about the container. Now we have to talk about what you actually put inside the container, which would be your intention, what you want to incubate in the dream that you want to have. So when you are creating this intention, does it make a difference if you phrase it as a question or as a statement?
I think it does, because I think that the way that the mind interprets the language, it's either, when you make a statement, you're really giving a command. Tonight, I will dream about fill in the blank, journeying to a meadow where I am bestowed upon creativity for my next book, something like that, right? So that's really a statement or a command. When you phrase it in the form of a question, you're really providing more of an open gateway for anything to come through. We don't know, right? When we set an intention, we're setting an intention for a specific response, right? We want a response to the question. We don't necessarily know what that response will be, number one. And number two, we don't know what form it will take. So I think that distinguishing between the response itself and the form that it will take in terms of the symbols of the dream, they're distinctive, and they're also very important when it comes to the analysis or the interpretation of the dream, because what you would derive from one symbol is going to be completely different than what you would derive from something else. So when you form the intention in an interrogatory, right, in a question, then you're really kind of giving your subconscious or giving the higher self a blank canvas. Whereas with a statement, you're commanding, or you're sort of dictating in a way, this is what is going to happen, right? So they are different in that one is, I would say one is active and one is receptive.
And when you're phrasing it as a question, how specific does the question have to be? Or do you want to keep it open-ended, or you want to just say, I want being very specific about it?
I think it depends. And sometimes what we do in the coaching sessions when I work with clients is that the incubation, the questioning process becomes iterative, meaning that we might ask one question, we'll get an answer in the dream, we'll look at the symbols, and then we'll ask a deeper question about that same topic. And so I think it really depends on what a person is working on within themselves on any given point, what kinds of self-awareness that they're looking to achieve, right? Some people use dreams strictly for creativity, and that's what they want to incubate on. Some people are really looking to dig deep and do some of the shadow work, which is what starts to come from this book, in that we're really looking at uncovering the things that we don't know about ourselves, looking to deepen our awareness of who we are as human beings and why we're here and what are we doing, right? What are we manifesting, and what are we bringing to the waking life, and how can we enhance that by our greater self-awareness through the dream time? So I think it really depends on where the individual is with all of those things in mind, so that we can continue to create sort of a building process. That iterative process builds and creates a greater expansion with each use of the self-awareness. And so we build and we build and we expand upon that as we go. Everybody is going to kind of start in a different place too, with that in mind, right? Some who are maybe beginners, or some who have been working with dreams for quite some time, they might have different questions, and they may be seeking different types of answers, because they're just at a different point in their own explorative process.
Mm-hmm. Understand that. Okay. Another thing that you stress is the idea of non-attachment. So can you explain what that means and how it can affect how you see a dream?
Yeah. That piece is really important. And I think sometimes the non-attachment piece is almost more challenging for people to grasp, or to be able to actually do it. It really comes from this idea, lending from the Buddhist tradition, which is having your emotions be detached from a certain outcome, right? Meaning, if you're asking for an answer to, what is my next best career step? If you really have your heart set on, becoming a marine biologist, let's say, and you're asking an open-ended question during the dream incubation process, you may have an emotional attachment to becoming a marine biologist, in which case that may preclude some of the other answers that may come through. So it may set up a block, for starters. But another thing that can happen is that you may just you may not get the best right answer for you when you're already attached to something else. So let's say the message that's trying to come through is that, maybe marine biology is not the best thing, but it could be something similar or related, like let's say zookeeping. I don't know, I have animals in my mind today. So let's say this person has their attachment to becoming a marine biologist, but really the dreamscape wants to provide that message of zookeeping, right? Then that message might not be heard, or might not be interpreted. The symbols of the dreams may not be interpreted in the best way to come to the answer that's trying to come through, right? So when you have your attachment set on the marine biology, and let's say another animal comes in, you might interpret it as, oh, this is correct. This is affirming my desire to become a marine biologist, when really it's saying, no, this is about zookeeping, which is similar, right? But not exactly the same path. At least it wouldn't be for our career. So having the non-attachment leaves the door open for whatever answer it is, because sometimes, and well, I would say most often actually, the answer that we are receiving is maybe not necessarily one that we could guesstimate ahead of time. So when we're writing that question, we're not thinking necessarily of what that correct answer, that right answer for yourself would be, because we can't necessarily conceive of it in our minds. And so when we create the attachment, we shut down those possibilities. And so staying in non-attachment, meaning, I'm going to be open to whatever's going to come up. I'm not going to have a preconceived notion. I'm not going to apply my limiting beliefs to this question. I'm not going to look at this as something that I already know the answer to, right? To prescribe the answer while you're trying to bring in new information from the incubation, but rather leaving it as a blank canvas, leaving it completely open to whatever is going to come through, and then relying on the symbols and the interpretation to then decode whatever the message is from the dream.
I was very intrigued with this whole idea that you can use dream incubation to kind of access the shadow part of yourself. So tell me how that would work.
I love that. That's when I work with clients, that's really where we start to dig in and do the real work. And when I say the real work, I mean the real growth-oriented self-analysis that's required for lasting change, right? And again, a lot of that comes back to what some of those formative experiences are. What lives in the shadow, from what I've seen with my clients, is typically, the limiting beliefs, the faulty beliefs, the things that maybe a lot of it comes back to childhood, the ideas and the beliefs that we've formed in a faulty way during childhood, because, when you're young, you don't have access to the same level of executive processing and ability to rationalize, but also to work through emotions and the complexities like you do when you're an adult. So what ends up happening is as a child, we often assign faulty conclusions to different experiences, right? And so when we do that, then what happens with those faulty conclusions is that we create kind of these layers of faulty beliefs that then inform the way that we think and the way that we behave, and then the way that we execute action into the world. And so when we can use dream incubation to look at what is in shadow, I always see that the limiting beliefs and the faulty beliefs are typically not known to the conscious mind. We really have to dig at those things and really uncover them to say, oh, that's why I did that. Oh, you're right. That's the idea that's been running behind the scenes. They're most often unconscious until you actively try to uncover them. And so in working with the dream incubation process, we're really looking to uncover those parts of the shadow, the parts that are unknown about ourselves, the limiting beliefs that we don't have conscious awareness of, the faulty conclusions that we've made as children that are informing all the choices that we make in adulthood. And that's really, I think, where I see the biggest growth with people and the biggest potentialities, because when you have these limiting or faulty beliefs that are informing your choices, you're probably creating certain things in your life that you may not necessarily want, but you're not necessarily sure how to change, right? And so becoming aware of what's living in the shadow, all that stuff that's in the shadow that's unknown, when we become aware of it, then we can take actionable steps to make different choices, because we have the conscious awareness to then choose a different pathway.
Yes.
That's the part that I love the best, actually, about using incubation, is not just the fun thing of saying, oh, tonight I'm gonna lucid dream, and go to the Himalayas and hike Annapurna, but rather where can we gain the most growth through the process so that we can really work in the waking life to live our best lives in that way.
Yeah, and that's why dream work is just so important. And I've got so many more questions I could ask, but just have time for this one.
Sure.
Kelly, how can people find out more about you and your book?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. So people can reach me at kellylydick.com, KELLYLYDICK.com. The book is available at retailers worldwide, any of your indie bookstores, bookshop.org, Amazon, any of your brick and mortar stores. If they should have it on the shelf, and if they don't, they can certainly order it. You can also get details at purecarbonpublishing.com, or link up with me on Facebook, sign up for my newsletter. You'll get a free downloaded MP3 for Dream Incubation when you sign up for my newsletter. And anywhere you can find me on the web, I'm happy to link up.
We've been talking about dream incubation with Kelly Lydick. We'll be right back with our next guest. In the time I've been doing this program, I've seen a theme weave its way into the episodes I bring you. And it's this: joy in our lives doesn't come with a single snap of a finger. Instead, it's often the result of successfully rising from the depths of despair by learning deep truths about ourselves that enable us to transform into beings with purpose and a renewed passion for life. Such is the case with my guest, empowerment coach Charlene Madden. She rose from childhood abuse and adult traumas to now being able to help other women grow and embrace their own inner phoenix. And she has an important story to share that I'd like you to hear. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Charlene.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, it is my pleasure, Charlene. And Charlene, as I said, you were able to successfully overcome what could best be described as a horrible upbringing and a lifetime of mental illness. What happened to you, and how are you now able to thrive in your life?
Yes, it's been a journey. As you were saying, it doesn't come with the snap of a finger. Absolutely. My story began early in my childhood. When I was 3.5, I was placed in the care of my grandparents in what was a mixture of a loving, nurturing environment with my grandmother, who was such an amazing woman, and also a nightmare situation because my grandfather was a pedophile. So at 3.5, my older sister, who is 4 years older than myself, we started experiencing sexual abuse and trauma at his hands. And this went on for 9 years. So it wasn't just a brief episode. And of course, as a child who had come from a broken home, I was terrified of losing the only family that I knew at the time. So it created this need for silence and secrecy, and that just carried on for all those years. I was 12.5. My sister was 16 when everything came out. And it was because my sister was terrified of being impregnated by my grandfather. And she desperately wanted to leave. She contemplated running away, but also knew that if she left, the full brunt of the abuse would then be placed on me. So she finally broke down, everything came out. My grandparents divorced, my grandfather went to jail. So everything I'd fought so hard to try to do, which was to keep that family together, ended up shattering apart anyway. And so I go into high school and I've got all this pent up trauma. And when it came out, it was the early 80s. So there wasn't a lot of follow-up care and counseling and therapy. It wasn't really a thing back then. And of course, I lived in a small town and living with my grandmother. She just wanted to put her head down. Let's just get through life and forget. And that's what I tried to do. But of course, if we don't deal with the trauma, it's just that smoldering ember that just keeps burning inside of us. So when I was 16, I started writing, and that was my outlet. It was a way to, I always said, pour ink out onto paper rather than blood, because at the time it was one option or the other. And writing was a good outlet. It allowed me to express all the emotions that I had built up inside in a healthier way. But of course, it drew a lot of attention. And I was, pulled into my school guidance counselor's office and met with a school psychiatrist who, after 4 hours, diagnosed me as being bipolar manic depressive. Now, it's a time where, I can't just pick up my cell phone and Google it, because that didn't exist. So I had no idea what I was even diagnosed with. And again, there was no follow-up. It was a simple, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to talk, book an appointment, come talk with us. And realistically, talking was the last thing I wanted to do, because I had developed this habit of just burying everything and trying to pretend it didn't exist. And of course, that doesn't work ever. And so I graduate high school. I move away with my high school sweetheart. We decide to start a family, get married, all those things that I think are going to fix this hole that's inside of me. And I think with every child, I thought a piece of me would be put back in, but really a piece of me was still taken out because I didn't have the skills to be a mom and a good mom.
It must have been very lonely also for you not having that.
It was. And, it's so funny that you say that, because I was thinking about it this morning and I thought how often I would be in a room full of people, but still felt all alone. And when you're experiencing that, there's so many people that I know feel that way. You can be surrounded with people and still feel all alone inside. So I'm struggling with all these emotions. And at the age of 28, I know that I'm at a very dark place again, where I'm contemplating suicide, and I'm terrified of my kids being the ones that are going to find me. And I make the decision to, I thought at the time, take a break from my family. I said to my husband, I need to leave. I'm not fit to care for myself, let alone 3 young children.
You were suicidal, just about to end your life, but you stepped into a women's workshop. What happened?
I finally went and took my seat, and I spent the first part of the morning again feeling out of place, listening to speakers talk about financial well-being, health and wellness, physical, diet and exercise. And of course, none of this is relating to me whatsoever. There's no connection. And in the afternoon,
be around for it.
well, exactly. I'm like, this is irrelevant to me. This is what I'm thinking. And the afternoon session comes on, and a woman takes the stage, and she's bald. She has alopecia, and she starts talking about how she had spent her childhood, teenage years, and young womanhood hating herself, not loving herself, because, she equated hair to beauty, of course, as so many women are taught to do. And so she didn't feel beautiful. She didn't feel worthy of anything. And how her life changed when she learned to love herself. She stopped looking to society and everyone outside of her to love herself. And that's what she started doing. And everything in her life started to shift when she started to love herself. And I am sitting there and I hear a little voice that kind of goes, well, what about you? And I thought, yeah, how different could my life have been if I had loved myself? If I had not needed outside validation to prove my worth and to say that I deserve to be here in this life. Of course, I brushed it off quickly, and next speaker comes up, and she starts talking about living with mental health, depression, and suicidal ideology for 20 years, and how she had fought her depression for so long. And it was the moment that she accepted that, her depression was a part of her. It's like having diabetes, right? It's part of you. You have to learn to live with it and accept it and love that part of you as well. And how when she learned to stop fighting against her mental illness, but pulled it in and embraced it, that everything in her life changed. And again, I'm sitting there in that seat going, yeah, how different could things have been for me if I had learned to live with my mental health struggles, if I could have found a healthy way of living with it instead of just being so sucked into the dark. And again, I brushed it off. And then the next speaker gets on stage, and it's a gentleman who is talking about living with alcoholism, a failed marriage, losing, custody of his kids, living with depression and being suicidal, and how he had spent a year trying to find a perfect mix of pain medication and alcohol so that he could commit suicide, but make it look like an accidental overdose, because he sold life insurance and he knew what he had to do. And he tells a story of the evening when he found that perfect mix of drugs and alcohol. Was a rare occasion his wife asked if he could watch the kids overnight, which never happened. He had his kids at home, and he was slowly overdosing on his couch and knew that this was it. This was the moment he was going to die. And he managed to get to his phone. He had heard a voice that said, no, not like this, not today, there's more. Called 911, got help, got clean, got sober, got into therapy and counseling. And now he was sharing his story and all the struggles that he experienced in order to help other people. And as I was sitting in that seat, it's this momentary thing of what is going on right now. I remember thinking that, and I almost remember like looking around going, is there a hidden camera here? Even though no one knew what I was experiencing, because I thought, what are the chances that I am, number one, at an event I didn't want to go to? And number two, I have just heard 3 speakers talk so authentically and honestly and raw about the areas of my life that I've been struggling with. Like, this can't be, it was like this momentary realization of this can't be by accident that I'm sitting in this seat. I am meant to be here at this moment and hear these stories. And why? Because there's more. Life has more. And I made a decision in that moment that I was going to live. I chose life at that point. And I thought, I'm not just going to live, I'm going to thrive. I'm going to take the stories and the experiences I've had, I'm going to share them in hopes that someone else can find hope through my struggles. I got up and I went and I approached the woman who hosted the event. And I said, I would really love to sit down with you and let you know the impact that this workshop had on my life, because I wanted her to know that she had saved my life by hosting that workshop. And I sat down with her, shared my story, and I said, I would love to be able to come back next year and share it for you. And she said, absolutely. So the next year I went back and I shared my story to her audience. And I remember saying that my purpose in sharing my stories and my struggles is so that I can reach that one person. And if I can reach that one person, I can save just one life. And if I can save just one life, then that means everything I have gone through in my life is worth it. And I got off the stage that day and I was walking to go out of the room. And I had a woman that was in the audience approach me and she said, how you said you wanted to save a life? Well, I want you to know today you did. And she turned and walked away. And I was sitting there kind of like, standing there in kind of awe and shock, like, what? And I remember hearing that voice in my head that I've come to listen to. And it said, okay, now let's go find one more. So for me, every day is about finding one more. It's just reaching out and going, there's a purpose from the pain. We can take our mess and make it our message and share and give hope and inspire people that they're not alone and that there is hope to get through the struggles that you're experiencing. And so now that's what I do. I host a workshop every year as my way of providing that platform for people to hear other stories. I coach women one-on-one to let them know that they can rise up out of what they're going through. And I come on and share my stories on platforms like yours here.
How can people find out more about you and your work?
You can find me on all the social media platforms, Charlene Madden, speaker and author on Facebook. My website is charlenemadden-speaker.com. So you can find me on there. Instagram, I'm on all the social media platforms. So, and if you're interested in my workshop, please follow us on Facebook. It's called Ignite Your Life. So we will be operating our workshop again in November virtually. So I'd love to have everybody come out. So
we've been speaking with women's empowerment coach Charlene Madden. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you have, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weisman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.